when somebody says, "Tell me about yourself," a lot of times people may want to go in a chronological order about their career. Nope, that's not how you answer that question. It's something
Interesting.
simple. It's a very succinct, crisp answer around, hey, I've most recently been working on XYZ at this firm. This is my success that I've had. And I see myself being able to add value to you and the team by doing XYZ. That's how you answer, tell me about yourself. That's really simple, but you won't know that until you invest in learning.
Hey, Anthony, thanks for coming on the show today. Excited to hear your story.
Hey, super excited to be here, Mark. And firstly, I must say, I absolutely love what you guys are doing with this Caribbean podcast. I think being able to educate our Caribbean peeps and anybody that's interested in learning about the tech space is really critical. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my background.
Fantastic. So tell us a bit, where you are in the world right now, who do you work for, and what you're up to there.
Sure. Well, I am currently in Seattle where it's not raining today. So
Oh,
super
that's
excited
exciting.
about that. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it only rains during the winter period, really. That's the main piece. The summers are absolutely beautiful.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm based in Seattle. Both my wife and I are here. We both were recruited by Amazon and we're still both at Amazon since 2017. And I'm a senior program manager leading the employee experience and trust for Amazon Music. I also am president of Amazon's Black Employee Network HQ chapter here in Seattle. So yeah, a little bit about my current status.
Absolutely exciting. Amazon Music. Tell us about Amazon Music and what the team is up to there and what people should be paying attention to in the marketplace.
Yeah, well, we've recently launched a really exciting app called AMP. And it's essentially a radio for anybody. Anybody could become a radio host through this app. Think of Clubhouse, but having the proprietary access to all of Amazon Music's catalog, and you being a host and being able to play that music. So it's definitely an exciting new launch. So I would recommend any of the listeners to check that out. But yeah, Amazon Music is definitely continuing to lead into customer obsession over the experience. I think we are the only streaming platform that has the opportunity for you to listen in HD for all of the songs on the platform that they're able to convert. So that's one of the benefits, is one of the benefits of Prime, that you get access, but to get the, some of the things like being able to skip to the next song, you got to have the paid service. So, if you're a music enthusiast, definitely check it out for the higher quality sound.
Yes.
Yeah, and they do a lot of partnerships with Prime Video, so you're going to see a lot of the artists. So not only from a music listener point of view, they also are working with artists. So think of artists like Common or Masego that are on the platform developing relationships. And I heard, with the new radio app that was launched, I believe, what's the name? Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj will be hosting one of the programs on that.
Oh, whoa.
We have some
Okay.
big names coming in on the program. Yeah.
All right, that's fire. Cool. So we do the show to encourage people from the Caribbean region, to pursue data-driven careers. And I'd like to sort of expand that to, there are many different roles in tech. And as I look through sort of your LinkedIn and your career history, there's a rich set of experience that you have at different firms. And
Sure.
like with Amazon, you've done like different things. So tell us, as you've picked up at the forefront of tech, right? Amazon is at the forefront. They're really blazing the trail, especially in retail, e-commerce and stuff like that. What should people in the Caribbean be thinking about for the future career?
Yeah, so I would strongly recommend that our Caribbean community lean into STEM education, because that's going to be a critical component, I think, to the continued development of the Caribbean region. Pursuing data-driven careers, pursuing AI, machine learning. It's how we're going to be able to remain competitive and really get strategic insights into how to solve for problems. I think a great spokesperson for this has been the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, and really championing the need for us to be innovative around the opportunities in the Caribbean, and a big part of that is the infrastructure that we need to develop in technology. I would definitely encourage folks to look at careers within STEM. So there's business intelligence, there's data scientists, there's engineering, there's research scientists around statistics. So all of these roles, I think, or career opportunities would lead into developing the region further, and it's definitely a critical component.
Fantastic. And so you lead the Black Employee Network at Amazon as well, correct?
Sure. Yes.
And
yes,
what does that mean for folks who in Caribbean might not necessarily know that these organizations exist, and what's the mission there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm president of our Black Employee Network HQ chapter. I've been a leader of the Black Employee Network at Amazon since 2017. And, it was one of Amazon's 12 affinity groups. And these affinity groups are designed to create support structures for employees that are underrepresented. So specifically for Ben, in my role and my capacity, I want to champion inclusion, diversity, and equity for Black employees and the Black community, and really create a support structure around that. Some of the focus areas that we do have for our Black employees are professional development and retention, thinking of recruiting and how we create pipelines for and diverse talent into the company, looking at community involvement and how we create impact externally. Business growth as well. A big piece of what we like to do is look at the business and how could we align things that we know would help our external community or diverse customers, and tie that back into the different areas of opportunity that Amazon has, because it's an ecosystem that has so much access, so much opportunity. How can we lean into developing ideas that we have through the business and create an impact that way? So those are some of the things we do. It's been an amazing journey leading the organization, and I'm really happy to continue to do it.
So I think something that gets me quite interested when I learn about people's journeys is why do some people take leadership positions? And,
Sure.
and not necessarily, like, oh, you're going to be a leader, but what drives you to want to contribute at that level? Let's call it that, right?
Yeah, sure. So I think sometimes, you are compelled to want to lead and do something. And then sometimes a mentor, somebody sees something in you. And from my opportunity to lead our Black Employee Network was actually somebody seeing something in me. So when I joined in 2017, the previous president of our Black Employee Network, she actually reached out to me and said, hey, I would like you to become my vice president. And back then, as a new Amazonian, just joining the company, ramping, it was not something on my radar at all. I spoke to a mentor and I told them, hey, this would be massive because and a big responsibility. And I don't know if I, have the bandwidth or capacity to take on that burden. And he said, hey, when opportunities are presented, you take them. And I took that advice, and I became vice president of our Black Employee Network. And now, as of last year, I became president. But through that journey, I actually really learned, where I would be able to create impact and really inspect my strengths and the areas of opportunity that I had for myself, and leaned into that. So I think in the beginning, for example, I was kind of afraid of public speaking, and I got way better at that over time. But I knew, I know. But it was intimidating at first because it was intimidating at first. But I think just leaning into what is going to make me successful, I think, as a leader, and the things that organically I had that worked well, I just leaned into that, really helped to really kind of develop those muscles further, and the areas of opportunity worked on them. So for example, with the public speaking, I joined Toastmasters, to kind of gain those speaking muscles. But I think once somebody saw it in me and I didn't see it in myself, I believed it too. And it just goes to show the importance of mentors and sponsors and stuff in your career.
So there's lots to unpack there. So I want to make sure I say this correctly.
Sure.
So you said that someone saw something in you, and I think there's a quote that I heard a long time ago when I was doing my my graduate studies that, I didn't necessarily think that I could do it. So fairly similar situation. And I think it was Les Brown. It's like, you have to believe in someone else's belief in you until yours kicks in. So given that statement, what were your feelings as maybe someone said, hey, you could do this, and you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna jump in. What was that shift in mentality like?
Yeah, so I had to do an analysis of the pros and cons of it.
Okay.
I was a leader of NSBE in college, so so National Society of Black Engineers. I served as senator for 2 years at City College of New York. So I've always had an affinity for supporting diversity and inclusion within the tech space. Even when I moved on, I was always part of organizations in some capacity, doing leadership roles to support the organization. So I did an inspection of my current skill sets, my background, and I honestly did have a very strong why. I think when I joined Amazon, having, a lot of times in these corporate spaces, you are the only one. And it's really important to have a network of like-minded individuals to help you, that allows you to find and build community. And that was really impactful for me when I joined Amazon, having access to this Black Employee Network. When I went to a barbecue that they had, at the meeting, somebody there, an engineer, his name is Sebastian. He was like, "Hey, you should be networking director for Ben." And I was like, just the same way with the president. I was like, nah, I too new. I have to ramp. I have to figure out how I'm actually going to survive this, this monster that is Amazon and all the things I got to learn and drinking through the fire hose. But at midnight, I applied to the role for deputy director of networking, and I actually got elected. And then the president said, "Hey, I want you to become vice president instead." But yeah, it was really an analysis of, hey, what can I bring to the table, and can I see myself doing this? Talking to my mentor and getting their feedback. So my mentor was the CEO of the previous company I worked for called WealthX. Fun fact, he was the youngest Black chief information officer ever in the US. His name is Nicholas Rumbus.
Very cool.
And he was chief information officer of WEP Carry and also chief information officer of Forbes as well before starting his own firm. So yeah, he gave me that feedback around, when opportunity presents itself, you should rise to the occasion. Don't shy away from it. And just for context, as president of our Black Employee Network, I have access to our CEO. So at the time, Jeff Wilkie, CEO of Consumer, was our executive sponsor. So I would have quarterly business reviews with him. Fast forward to the present day, Andy Jassy, CEO of Amazon, is who I report to on our quarterly business reviews. So it was intimidating, but I said, hey, this has a lot of organic benefit to my career development and me growing as a leader. And I have a strong why. It's important to me for us to actually move the needle for diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
So I leaned into that.
Whew. And this is not, I think your mentor said that quite not lightly, but this is not like, oh, let me just become president of some organization within like a smaller company. This is like Amazon. This is like all of Amazon, right? So it's quite intimidating. I can feel intimidation on your side.
Exactly.
And Amazon is known to have a very intense culture, a very like purpose-driven, action-oriented type culture. So I could only imagine the extra layer of being an Amazonian and being a leader in Amazon as well. Can you maybe speak to some of those cultural elements? Because I love learning about Amazon culture.
Yeah, of course. So I would start with what really drew me to Amazon after learning about it, because it wasn't on my radar prior to it. Just quick backstory. Both my wife and I were recruited by the company. So when I was at WealthX, which is an ultra high net worth and market research company, they actually were recently sold to a firm in London. But while there, I led the client success team, and that was going great, doing really well. And one of my good friends was at LinkedIn, and he kept soliciting me like, bro, you'd be so good at LinkedIn. Come over. And I would have lunch there because they were like 5 blocks from me by the Empire State Building. We worked around the corner. So I'd always be there, made friends with other folks that were at LinkedIn. And I finally did do the interview. But prior to getting the offer from them that I did ultimately get, my wife got solicited by Amazon to lead product analytics for their Prime business.
Oh.
Prior to that, she was head of analytics for E-Trade. And then we were like, this is such an amazing opportunity. Let's do it. My firm, Wealthtech, said I would work remotely. And then a week after she got the offer and learned that she had to move to Seattle, I got the offer from LinkedIn. So there's a bit of a friction there that we had to navigate because I was super excited about it. But ultimately I turned it down. But Amazon looked at my background and they were like, hey, you'd be a great fit for the B2B marketplace, leading strategic account management for our technology customers. And I interviewed and I also got it. So we started Amazon 2 weeks apart.
That's exciting. How many people do you think have stories like that where both you and your spouse?
I'm sure because the company has 1.3 million employees, I'm sure there's other, but that's within, so just for context, there's the fulfillment center and operations employees and then the corporate side. So on the corporate side, you probably will have about 500,000 employees at this point. Yeah, I'm sure there's some, but it won't be very frequent for sure.
I hear you. Well, good. And the other point I wanted to tease out from what you had said earlier is mentor and sponsor. And sure. I think only until recently in the past couple of months that I really learned. I think I'd seen it and experienced it, but can you articulate the important and distinction between a mentor and a sponsor?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So your mentor is somebody that you can really lean into for understanding how to navigate a problem, for advice, proactive advice as well. And they kind of are a guide throughout your career in different points. And I would strongly recommend that you have different types of mentors for the different areas of opportunity that may come up within your life. So I have several mentors. I would also recommend that you have diverse mentors as well, not only by race, but also by a different background as well in career, because they could give you different angles. Like one of my mentors is from since college, and he remains one of my strongest mentors to date. And I found him through when I was graduating in my senior year. There was a program in which you could reach out to folks that were alumni, and I picked him. He was matched to my background of having business and finance concentration. And when I started my internship, we would meet up on Wall Street. So the mentor is really somebody that acts as a guide, somebody you could lean on for questions, strategic advice, navigations of areas of opportunity you may run into. The sponsor, however, they are really someone that could actually have influence into having direct impact on your career. So, for example, if you have a sponsor and within the business that is aware of your work, in the rooms that you are not a part of, they could speak on your behalf and say, you know what, Mark would be an excellent person to take over this new initiative. I've seen his work in doing X, Y, Z. Let's bring him to the table. And they have the opportunity to directly influence your career. So you won't interact with them in the exact same way as the mentor. In rare cases, the mentor could be the sponsor, but usually it's a very separate function.
Wow, and that was very nicely articulated. And this is the kind of shit I wish they'd teach you in school. Like,
yeah, man. Yep.
Mentor, sponsor.
Yep. I think I was fortunate because I had such a influential mentor so early on in understanding these things and the importance of networking. I think, just think of it, right? The reason I had that mentor was because I leaned into networking. And I would say for anybody listening, do not underestimate the power of networking. I think it's probably the most critical component of how you're going to be able to successfully navigate your career. For myself, it has time and time again, the ways in which I've been able to navigate Amazon and the opportunities before then was because I networked.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna put a post-it note for networking, and I'm gonna pull it out and stick it on different things that we're gonna talk about.
Sounds good. So, happy to chat more.
So tell us about your high school journey. What were you like in high school? I was a slacker, probably the dearest student ever, but by the grace of God, I was able to get through it, right? And friends.
Yeah, man. Well, touch a little bit little bit before high school because it's important too.
Yes.
I think I had a great support system. I think I come from a family of educators. So I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. If you hear the accent, that's where it's from. Big up any of the Caribbean folks, but big up my Trini Massive that's listening. And I grew up in Sangre Grande, and I went to Arima Boys RC for primary school. And there, I think I developed some of the, discipline and rigor to have a successful high school career. My uncle used to, give me tutoring. And particularly for common entrance. And I'm proud to say all of my cousins, all of us got into the prestigious schools back home, the Fatimas, the QRCs, the St. Mary's of Trinidad. And I got into Fatima. And
I'm
big up all the Fatima old boys. But I'm big up CIC, big up CIC.
Yeah.
But in particular, I think my Fatima experience, really was the foundation for a lot of the success I continue to have in my career. And what I mean by that, it created a place, it was an institution that established discipline for me and an understanding of what is required for success. Some of the teachers that I had back then and their words and the way they influenced me still impact me today. Even the mission of the school, I think our motto is Nintendo Ventures, not Nintendo. Nintendo Vinces, a Latin phrase for by striving we will conquer. And fun fact, today in my Fatima Boys Old group, my name in WhatsApp is Nintendo Ventures because I carry that out throughout my career in understanding that I have to persevere even when the going gets tough, even when it's challenging. So I kept that with me, and that was grounded in Fatima. I was also an athlete. I used to run for Fatima. I used to train with Memphis Pioneers as well. And being an athlete, I think, also helped develop that discipline muscle around, working hard. When I transitioned from Form 2 to Form 3, Fatima had a scholarship class for the Form 3 cohort where the top tier students would get put into that program. And I was successful in doing that. But it showed me early on the importance of education for getting opportunities. And, I think it really laid the groundwork for me to have the framework that I had to help me continue to be successful when I transitioned to the US.
Fantastic. So I wanted to highlight, you said the importance of education. So yeah. I personally have done more school than I care to have done, to be honest. And I think for me, I look at it more so as a game, right? You're so in a system, the system has certain gates and you kind of have to do certain things to get through those toll gates. And I think education is one of them. What would you say to folks that they don't necessarily resonate really well with the traditional education system, especially maybe back at home, and how should they navigate that, knowing that this is a system, but if you get what I'm saying.
Sure. So my knee-jerk response to that is, if you're not going to take a traditional education path through an established educational institution like UWI, for example, or City College that I went to in New York, you then have to identify a certain skill sets that you need to develop that will make you marketable for your area of interest. So the hard work and discipline piece and becoming a subject matter expert or having the skill sets, the knowledge to be able to execute on whatever field of interest is still going to be there. Especially in the tech space now, we're seeing more and more companies would actually take talented folks that are software developers that understand coding, that understands the different languages within tech into it without a bachelor's degree, but you're still going to have the capacity to meet the standards required for you to get into those engineering opportunities that are there. So that's just one example. So I think the hard work, the discipline piece is still going to be there, even if you don't want to take a traditional path.
Makes sense. And I appreciate you calling some of those things out. So you mentioned you were a student athlete in high school. Was that the same case when you got to college?
Good question. Good. Yeah, good question. So Atto Bolden, if you guys remember Atto, one of our greatest athletes from Trinidad and Tobago, he was a big inspiration for me. Fun fact, one time we were having sports day, and I was winning my race, and Atto was walking in, and I felt so proud. And he was the one to put the medal over my neck. So that was a really special opportunity. I had two autographs, as I call them, on my spikes, because I had him autograph my spikes twice on two occasions. And so I had big aspirations to represent the country in Carifta. So when I left Trinidad and left Fatima at Form 4, and we moved to the States migrated to the States with my mom and younger brother. And when I became, I don't know if how many folks are familiar with the experience of immigrants coming into the U.S., but a lot of times they may want to hold you back to the grade level that you should be. And I did experience that. But my mom is a force to be reckoned with, and she was an educator herself. She was principal. If you remember, there was a No Child Left Behind Act in Trinidad some years ago. She was one of the principals that were selected for the brand new schools that were launched in the country. So she was somebody that was very much familiar with the importance of navigating those things properly, and she was very staunched on, hey, he has to get into a good program, good school. So she made that happen. I went to Edward R. Maurer High School in Brooklyn, New York, which was a good school back then, for sure. And she advocated for them to translate my credits into the school. So I came in as a sophomore and then got up to a junior within 2 weeks. Now, what happened is I wasn't accustomed to the weather, the climate out there in the US. So my school, unfortunately, did not have a track and field program. They did not have any sports. It was an art school. But I ran for Midwood High School, like a test run, and the coach definitely wanted me to join. I ran for another school called South Shore in Brooklyn. They were interested in me joining too. But I was getting sick when I tried to train because my body wasn't accustomed to it. So I actually stopped running. So I did not continue to pursue sports when I moved to the US because they used to train outside.
And yeah, because I couldn't imagine training in the brutal winters of New York.
Nah, I couldn't handle it. My body, I would get sick every time.
What did that? So I had a fairly similar experience, but from an injury. So in college, I joined the rowing team. There's absolutely no rowing in Trinidad other than dragon boating, and rowing is a tall person's sport, not a short, person from the Caribbean type sport. Yet I found it was quite interesting from a discipline perspective. Like in a race, you just had full sprint the entire time, and there's lots of mental constructs that you have to deploy to manage that amount of pain and to keep your mind sort of sharp throughout the entire race. So tell us about what's your view on the importance of, I don't want to say playing a sport because some people may not have had the opportunity to play sport, but to pursue a physical activity such that you get to maybe practice some other types of discipline?
Yeah, I love this question. So I work out often. One of my life mantras is healthy mind, body, spirit. If you were on my social media, basically every day when I post any of my workouts, my tagline is healthy mind, body, spirit. And I associate my mental toughness with navigating a challenging career or job. Being at Amazon is challenging because it's a organization that requires high standards. And when the going gets tough, a lot of times the same mental fortitude that I've developed as an athlete, or when my workout and when I'm feeling like I'm tired and I can't do one more rep or I can't run that extra few minutes, I lean into the competitive and mental kind of fortitude that I developed as an athlete present day. So since Fatima, I would actually, if I'm doing a Orange Theory, for example, and I don't know if you're familiar with the construct of that class, but there's different tiers that you have to do, and it could get really, really taxing. I think about myself running that 100-meter race and picture what, that feeling of success and that drive in the present moments. It's something that I do. And that also translates into, achieving success at Amazon or any job that I am at. I say to myself, hey, working backwards on what success would be like, what do I need to get there? Okay, this is what I got to do. And just hold on to that desire the same way I would do when I was running that 100 meters or that 200 or that 400. I kind of like picture it. And it's something I kind of do to channel that success.
Are you very good at visualization?
To some extent, because I think it ties into my creativity. So something I didn't mention is that I'm a singer-songwriter. So I do reggae, soca, dancehall music, and a lot of that is of my creation is around, you know, what do I want? What do I want my art to say? What do I want it to represent? So I kind of like manifest that in my art, in the song lyrics that I create.
Yes, and you know, building off of that particular thread of music and creativity, were you always musically inclined growing up?
Good question. Yeah, for sure. Because in Arima Boys RC, in primary school, I actually entered an extempo competition, and I wrote an extempo at 10 years old. So I think it always been part of me. And you know, it's just something I absolutely love. You know, it's definitely a passion, and yeah, I just try to find a way to integrate it into my life, even working in a corporate full-time role.
Yes, and for those listening who are not from the Caribbean region, extempo to some degree is sort of our local music. Like you might hear soca internationally, but extempo is, in my mind, a very interesting way of expressing poetry to some degree. Like the lyrics are quite fascinating. Actually, tell us about extempo, and the reason why I'm asking that is I'm only as an adult I'm appreciating the value of really writing well and what that do for your career. So I think I have a deep respect for people who write things, especially creatively. So I'm all in.
Yeah, so extempo was the mechanism by which we would storytell, especially you know, in the older days of the development of calypso music. You know, I would compare it to back in the day how hip hop folks in the hip hop space in the US would freestyle and, you know, kind of like take like jabs at each other competitively while they created these stories. And a lot of time they would talk about the current political climate as well. Extempo for us is basically that, where, you know, our calypsonians would write these lyrics and keep a specific phrasing. And it, I think a key component was this the call out Santi Manite. They would end it with that phrasing to highlight that they're finished with their clause. But yeah, it's just a really cool way of, you know, representing storytelling in a very structured way, and it also is competitive between the two calypsonians that are doing it.
Wow! And are you doing this at 10 years old?
Yeah, so I did an extempo when I was 10. I did my first extempo when I was 10. But I really think my main foray into like, hey, when I learned that I'm good at this was when I was 15, when I moved to the States. Me and a good friend, JP from Fatima, he moved to Philly. So we moved to the US around the same time, and he would come visit me in the summer. And he was very talented at producing. And we started to explore our creative side together.
What? Wow. Jealous, straight up just jealous. I think, you know, I just got my green card last year, and for me,
congrats
much appreciated. It was a long 15-year journey, just, you know, working towards it, and for me it was all or nothing. It was I gave up many creative pursuits, many deep desires I had to do other things. I was like, no, I have to, you know, finish all this education to give myself the best shot at doing it.
Sure.
And only now I'm sort of finding my who am I creatively type thing. And, you know, podcasting is one medium that I'm noticing and feeling that I have a natural knack to. What would you say to people that they don't necessarily have a direct opportunity to practice that creative outlet, but, you know, what words of encouragement would you give them?
Yeah, I think for me, what comes to mind is, what is life if you don't pursue your passions? Or what is life if you don't incorporate what you enjoy, that is, you know, that's essentially important to you, that makes you truly happy? You know, I know for me personally, when I don't lean into my creative interests, it definitely has an impact where I am not as happy. because I'm happiest when I am actually doing it. Like for me, you know, just doing a jam with other musicians, it's euphoric. I get so much pleasure out of that. Songwriting, which I'm doing a lot of right now as well, brings me so much joy. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And I would lean into, just finding a way, doing whatever it takes, make that a priority to include it in your life. And, of course, you have to do a good inspection of, what are the priorities currently, but definitely create space for whatever you love to do. If you love to, knit, do that knitting if it makes you happy. Don't let your life suffocate, because at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to say, I wish I worked harder at that company. You're going to say, I wish I did more of the things I enjoyed that made me happy as an individual, that may have had impact on others as well.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. That's why I bought a piano. That was the first step to learning to play is having it. And I've interviewed another gentleman who's a musician as well, and I've always been fascinated by musicians, because there's an extra layer of thinking that they have access to that I don't necessarily have from not practicing the craft of, I don't want to say I'm not musically inclined, just from the depth of practice that you guys go through as musicians. What would you say from an encouragement perspective, right? Okay, I might be able to rap, although I do want to do like a Trini rap channel for fun.
Let me do it.
Yeah, just out of kick, right?
Caribbean rap podcast.
Yeah, just saying like funny things where Trini people say it, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, what advice you got there? Because I think I noticed I was missing something in my brain by not practicing that creative aspect, even if I wasn't good at it, but just going through the process of learning would have been interesting.
Yeah. Oh, let's reframe the question for me. Let me make sure I understand it.
Yeah. So the question is, what advice do you have for folks that they don't think that they're musically inclined?
Yeah. Okay.
But I think the pursuit of music actually is quite fascinating and beneficial to people.
Got it. Yeah. So I think a good analogy would be the same organic benefits it has to you being an athlete or working out and exercise. Exercise helps with release of stress. Exercise helps to just have a clear state of mind as well. It helps you develop that mental discipline the same way, because to work out and push yourself requires, discipline, perseverance. And I think similarly, even if you're somebody that's not musically inclined, but you attempt to, pursue that and, work muscles, areas of that brain that you never did before, you're going to tap into new energy. You're going to tap into new creative and innovative opportunities. And I think, you work that side of the brain, that you may not typically do. Some folks are more left-sided, right-sided as creatives. Some folks like myself try to dabble into both, being in business, being in creative as well. And I think if you kind of gonna kind of expand, a bit of your the way in which you think and open some new possibilities. So definitely explore music, even if organically, naturally is not something you're interested in. Just like exercise is going to be a positive, add value to you.
Fantastic. And you keep saying inspecting, and sure. I'm gonna like harp on that. I listen very closely to like specific words people use, and sure. You were talking about inspecting your strengths, and I've been reflecting a lot these days on, as you get older, you get the shit, I have no more time. Like, what am I really good at? And that pressure to some degree maybe comes upon you. And I've been thinking a lot about what is it that comes very easily to me that is hard for others, and maybe leaning into that more. What is it that comes like really easy for you that is a strength, a natural strength of yours, that is maybe difficult for others?
Yeah, I think I would call out could answer this in so many ways, I think, sure. But something that I think is critical to my success really that comes naturally is I do ask for what I want for, and I'm not ashamed to do that. It's something in which if I believe that I deserve something, and specific to career, I ask for it. I think every promotion that I've had at Amazon And before that, so I started off my career officially as a private banker.
Okay.
Getting promoted into JP Morgan's private bank was me saying, hey, I think I can manage ultra high net worth clients. And I want to be part of that. And I got selected to be part of a private bank mentorship program that launched me into private banking. When I was interested in transitioning careers into the B2B management space before joining Amazon, I I networked and I asked folks for advice on and asked them to refer me to roles that I was interested in. When I joined Amazon, I said, hey, Mr. Manager or Mrs. Manager, I think I would like to be promoted because I have XYZ body of work and I think I'm deserving and I could actually execute on that next level. So I'm not afraid to ask for what I want. And I think it has helped me significantly.
That's powerful. Straight up.
Thank you, man.
That's very cool. That was not the answer I thought was coming this way. And I'm even taking, some notes and sticking it in my pocket, so to say. Tell us about private banking and what you learned at that particular part of your journey, because I think what fascinates me about rich people or high net worth people is that it requires an intense amount of discipline over a particular period of time to attain, different wealth like that. And we're not going to get into any arguments about, how, et cetera, but there's no denying to some degree, some level of incredible amount of discipline to execute to get that amount of wealth. So tell us about private banking and what you learned there.
Yeah. So I think from the execution and success of the role, my core value system resonated, which allowed me to be successful, which is I have always felt that it's really critical and important to have a mutual beneficial relationship with you and your clients. So from inception of the development of any relationship with my clients, I was very much, let me make sure I understand what is important to you. I understand what are your pain points, what is success to you, and then I work backwards from that problem set to make recommendations. So there is not a misalignment and there's not wrong expectations being set going into the relationship. So being very clear about that was how I always operated, and it allowed me to immediately gain trust, which allows me to also grow the relationship. So when that client receives their bonus at the end of the year, working as that hedge fund manager or portfolio manager, they come to me and say, "Hey, Anthony, here, what could we do with this opportunity?" Mm-hmm. Because I've earned that trust with them. I think just analyzing my clients, I think many of them were just obsessed with their specific field. They also became subject matter experts in whatever areas that they focused on. Across the board, they were just very disciplined, very hungry, very passionate. But a lot of them also did have, again, opportunity that presented itself. Like I remember this young hedge fund manager, the way he got into the firm that he did was because he was working on this this algorithm around this trade, and he presented it at a conference, and one of the portfolio managers at the firm, they came up to him and say, "Hey, I love what you did. I would love for you to come intern with us." Wow. So, again, being ready for the opportunity when it presented itself and rising to the occasion. So, and I think, being also very authentic in your why, as well as a banker, I wanted to help people actually be financially supported with the mechanisms that were available to them at the bank, and that brought me joy. So yes. a big part of my why was, when my clients are happy, and something as simple. I remember one time a client called me frantically, "Hey, my daughter needs to get access to money. How are we going to do that?" And being able to say, "Hey, calm down. I'm going to issue this as a private bank customer. You're able to extend a debit card. I'm going to actually have one of the local branches generate a card for her." And she was able to get that card to whatever transaction she needed to that was critical at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that brought me a lot of joy. That brought him, like a relief, and I earned trust in that simple act. So things like that are just critical.
And tell us about the culture, not necessarily culture of banking. I admire the intensity of focus of banking, and
Sure.
I'm always fascinated to talk to people who have been in that industry. What did you kind of experience from that, like work ethic? It's very clear that you're very good for your clients, and I'll dig into that more after, actually.
Sure. Yeah. So to break into that career, it requires a rigorous test. So private bankers are licensed professionals.
Yes.
And you have to get the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission licenses, or FINRA licenses, which is a regulatory body of our financial services here in the US. And it was so when I graduated, this was my first career outside. So I graduated from college. Well, in college, I was fortunate. I graduated in 2008, one of the worst economies, if you remember, because of the mortgage crash that we did have back then. But I was fortunate as I had a paid internship with the New York City Transit, specifically in the corporate communications engineering capital program management office. So I did that. When I graduated, I was already an intern, did not immediately get any opportunity. So I started a graduate program to continue the internship. And then I got an offer to become a banker. And the process was a rigorous series of tests to get licensed. So you had to get your Series 63 license, your Series 7 license, your New York City Health certification license as well. And a lot of people don't pass in the first attempt, and they typically kick you out of the program if you fail. So it was do or die.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And luckily, I got through. I was successful in passing all of my tests, and I started banking. And I think it's a very rigorous space to be in because it's so compliance driven. Like you can't say, even the type of speech you use in email, like it will be flagged by the back office if you use certain words. You can't, it's very specific language. You can't solicit over email. Those conversations have to be in person. I think if you don't have integrity, that could be a challenge because you would lose trust with your client. So again, just back to what made you successful is really having that authentic understanding of what they need to be comfortable with making the investment, and giving you their most prized possession for a lot of folks is their money, and that's so important to how you navigate this life, right? So there's that. It's very competitive as well because you're competing with everybody for the same clients.
I didn't realize that. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, well, if there's a finite pool of wealthy people.
True story.
And therefore, as you look at the social networks, your client might be connected to somebody else because they work at the same firm, but you're both targeting that same firm to get those quote unquote wealthy traders that would give you their big bonuses to invest for them or keep the assets with us. So it's definitely a very competitive, but that was the joy of it. Like we love the health. It was healthy competition. Who going to be banker of the month? Who going to get the biggest trade? Who going to bring in close the biggest mortgage? Home equity line of credit. That was fun, and I enjoyed that a lot.
It seems you thrive under the competitive environment. It looks like it. From afar.
In a sales role, you have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you said the magic word, sales. So I have a deep passion for sales, even though I'm, quote unquote, a data scientist. I come from a family of great salesmen, and sales is called salespeople. Actually, that's roll with the times. And what would you say to people listening about sales? I think it's actually one of the most underrated skills, and I think many people have a negative connotation against it. But if you're good at selling, sky's the limit, right?
So I would reframe that and say it is actually one of the most important skill sets a leader could have because they represent the company. And if there's going to be buy-in for that vision for that company, you are a salesman or woman, right? Any great leader has to sell their vision. So that comes into play in getting, winning friends and influencing people. You have to understand what the problem set is of your customers and then be able to provide solutions accordingly. And great salespeople are experts at being able to quickly identify by doing the research necessary to connect with the folks that they're trying to gain buy-in from and ultimately sell a product and convert to sale. I think the lifeblood of any company, engineering, law firm, is salespeople, because at the end of the day, for you to continue to get customers, who is on the front line actually being able to do that conversion to actually have them do your service? It's the sales team. So it's a critically important function for any business, and for any leader as well. You got to have some sales skills, because when you're creating inspiration or getting people to buy in, or you're say, Mark, you're starting a new entity for your data science or that new podcast, and you need support, you're going to have to sell them a little.
Yes, most certainly. And I think one of the things that occurred to me a number of years ago was, you sit down and you think every single thing that you have was purchased from money that came from a company to some degree, right? Your parents got paid, like when you were a child, your parents got paid for some kind of company, even if it was their own company, and someone had to sell something in order for you to eat and have all the things that you have. And I think when that hit me, I was like, oh, this is true part and parcel of our daily lives. To sell. And I think that's been my sort of silent mission. And one of the things I've admired about, going through your LinkedIn and now in this conversation is your intense, deliberate focus on client success and being customer facing. And the hypothesis is, because we come from the Caribbean and we're able to just sort of, the Caribbean, we're able to integrate across different cultures and races, etc., quite naturally. How do you think your Caribbean background maybe helped you to become, a better client-facing and sales-based roles?
Good question. I think actually having my Caribbean heritage allowed me to be unique. And allowing me to be unique allows me to stand out. We have a phrase at Amazon we call "be peculiar," and I think I'm a little bit peculiar, especially in these corporate spaces where there's not a lot of people that look like me or sound or speak like me. I do have an advantage because again, if I come from a place of authenticity and really understanding the client need and then being different, it's kind of like, oh, I like this person. I'm interested in them, and I'm able to leverage that to my advantage. I think people organically would have an interest in my Caribbean background, and I will talk about the fact that my wife is also from Trinidad and Tobago and stuff like that, and that just really helps with conversation and connection with individuals. Oh, have you ever been to Carnival? So that's, I think, in my sales conversations, using my unique Caribbean heritage to spark interest and just connect and share about my culture helps to draw in clients a lot of times. And even today, like, I don't know if you remember, but I kind of mentioned, when you hear this accent, it's from Trinidad and Tobago. That always piques interest with folks that are not from the Caribbean, that is not familiar. They join, oh, he's different. Oh, that's such a nice accent. And they're drawn in. So I do use it to my advantage and trying to build connections with folks.
Yeah. And I've always leveraged it. And I think a lot of my success has come from, one of my key contacts that I met, Larry Hercules. We just went out to San Francisco, my friend and I, and, we naively thought you could just walk into a coffee shop and get funding for a company. Like, this is shit you see on TV and you try to go do it, which was stupid in itself. And I went to a Black networking event And I didn't know, we didn't know anybody out in California, but I hear the accent. And I walk up to him and I was like, hey, what part of Trinidad are you from? And he just kind of looked at me, and that particular connection led to everything that is now, which was nice. 5 years, actually almost 7 years later. It was when I met him, right? And I was able to connect him with a friend of mine, Kyle Maloney, who's running Tech Beach Retreat. That's like the big conferences in Jamaica. And by even meeting another Trini, by just listening to the accents. I went to a NESB conference, actually. And I walked up to the Twitter booth. I was trying to interview. And I heard this guy's accent. And I was like, hey, you know, or he heard my accent. And he was like, you from Trinidad, so and so. And I get to talking. He had family and he used to visit, and he was the director of engineering at Twitter. I introduced him to Kyle. Kyle comes out and visits him just to, build that relationship to come to the conference. And then he ends up meeting Jack Dorsey out in San Francisco. I gets Jack Dorsey to come, the CEO of Twitter, to come to his conference in the Caribbean, now putting them on the map, right?
Awesome. Love that story.
Yeah. So it's insane how those connections from home will serve you globally, in my opinion. And this focus on client-facing roles is another thing I wanted to raise. I think when people think about tech careers or technical careers, so to say, they're like, I need to be really good at this technical, and like that's all I have to focus on. And there is a space of folks who are non-technical and hardcore. They are experts at dealing with people. And there's the stereotype that technical people can't deal with people. And then there's a space in the middle where you can both do technical and customer facing. And that's where I've been able to leverage, a lot of stuff in my career. And what's been your experience of, dabbling on both sides and seeing others leverage that as well?
Yeah, so I would point out that working for a tech firm, the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, etc. of the world, the FAANG, if you want to call them that, a big component to your success is having tech fluency. The more you grow your career within the firm.
You said tech fluence?
Yeah, tech fluency.
Tech fluency.
Tech fluency.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be critical to you becoming a more an executive, essentially, as you grow. So there is a bias there, if you want to be a leader in a tech space. But it shouldn't you shouldn't be intimidated by being within a tech space, because there's so much functions to a company, right? So if you think about any of these firms that I mentioned, there's an accounting part, there's a legal component, there's an HR component. But I do would call it that a company like Amazon is very data driven, and therefore you're going to have to be comfortable with leveraging data to champion your proposals, your ideas forward to have an impact. So, a critical piece to being an Amazonian, for example, is quantifying your success and what is the data that you're using and what are the insights that you gained for this proposal to get buy-in and consensus from leadership to move forward with whatever initiative. So you don't have to have, not everybody has to be an engineer to get into any of these tech firms, but you're going to have to develop an affinity for data and being able to generate insights from that to become successful once you're in.
That's an excellent point to call out. I didn't necessarily realize Amazon was that data driven across different functions. That's very cool.
So something is really important that you called out is the importance of writing. A big part of Amazon's leadership culture is doc writing, and we have a very specific, unique way in which we move ideas forward. We don't do presentations typically to leadership to get buy-in. You actually write a doc. If you identify a problem, you have to take ownership, one of the leadership principles of solving that problem, and the proposal 9 times out of 10 has to be articulated in a very specific way through a proposal with Amazon style writing. A mechanism we use is PRFAQ, press release frequently asked questions. That's the type of document in which you paint the picture of what the big idea would be and the current state of how's the solution that you're presenting, what that end result will be. What is that working backwards end state that we would like to see? And then at the FAQ section, you start really diving into what are the mechanisms and how you're going to solve it. So there could be consensus and buy-in, and the business leaders could inspect the path to success that you're presenting.
Whoa, that's, I've heard of that. Like, I guess before every meeting, people take time to read those particular documents, but I hadn't heard of the PRFAQ style and to some degree how in depth it can be. Wow.
Yeah.
And would you consider yourself a really good writer? Like, just from all of this stuff that you've done, songwriting and those types of things?
Yeah, I'm a decent writer. I think I would want to recognize that I need to continue to grow and develop. But I'm a decent writer for sure.
When you're in school and you're going through like, literature class and English class, something like, were you like super engaged into it, or were you typical?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to learn this.
I think I was gifted in creative writing. And the reason I could call that out for sure, I think at 10 years old too, around that same time I wrote the example.
Yes.
In standard 3. I will share this experience. I won't share too much detail about it, but I will say this. At that age, I did a creative writing composition called My Dog Thunder. And when I wrote it, the teacher said to me, "You didn't write it." Because it was so well written. It was like maybe 2 levels above the competencies typically for a standard 3 student or whatever. So I would say, I probably was always gifted in writing from that age, but creatively for sure.
Creatively, I see. Makes sense. So, we talked about when you're at a private bank at JP Morgan Chase, and then you went to this company called WealthX. Tell us about your experience there. It seems very mysterious, like just seeing WealthX, like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah. So WealthX was bought by, if I'm not mistaken, Euromoney. It's a London firm based in London. But WealthX, I actually absolutely loved my time with them. It is an ultra high net worth market research firm. And what we did have was a proprietary model for assessing individuals' wealth. So what is ultra high net worth? Well, our definition back then was that the individual has 30 million or more of aggregate net worth. And we would also be able to provide insights into their interests, passions, hobbies. What are the things that a private banker like myself in my old role, or a luxury brand, or a Ivy League institution like a Harvard, that would want to use for their donor development to gain insights to try and actually connect with this individual. So we provided those insights. In my function, I would work with the clients to understand what are their needs and the type of, prospects they were looking for, and train them on how to use the tools. So think of LinkedIn for ultra wealthy people. That was the platform that we had. And so we had, I think I had identified 800 more billionaires than Forbes did on their list. So it was a very rich data set of data on wealthy individuals. And the way in which we would be able to, have the additional icing on the cake was because we would use, research techniques, like say there is a closely held family that doesn't really, not publicly traded. So how are you assessing their wealth? Well, we would do things like, get data of how many, trucks of milk were coming from the farm, and quantify that and extrapolate back what would be the generation of revenue for that year or month or whatever, and back end that to actually kind of come up with the wealth framing. So those are the techniques we did. We also did we had a little bit of a technical component. So it's not just research, because I'm very proud to say I launched our integration SOP for the firm. Like when I joined my CEO, and this was a crucible moment, I would say, and it's a good story to share. So I'm probably 2 months in, and the CEO walked up to me and said, "Hey, Anthony, our client, the agency, we're going to be doing that that Salesforce integration with them, and I would like you to go there and train up the entire team and create an SOP for how we do our integrations." And I was like, okay, and no guidance, not even familiar with Salesforce, not familiar with the API process and stuff coming from banking. Never really dived into that. I spent the next few weeks really immersing myself in what is an API, how would we be doing this analysis of their data set to tag it to ours, bringing in the CRM Salesforce expert to partner with me. And I created that SOP. I presented to the agency around the Salesforce integration with the CEO present and everything. And then I trained up the entire sales organization on how to do these integrations going forward. But I would say what was really cool about that opportunity, again, I said, I always ask for what I want. And because I saw the CEO proactively ask me to take on that challenge and I was successful at it, I felt like I had some currency to ask him back for support. So, so that was around, say, February. I believe in December of that same year, right before we went on holidays, I went up to, I said, hey, Mick, it's okay if I come and chat with you? Sure. We scheduled it with his EA or whatever. And I said, hey, when you asked me to work on that integration project, it was a really great opportunity. I really love that I was able to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. I would love the opportunity for you to become my official mentor. And he said, sure, no problem. And that's how he became my mentor. And that's the same person I spoke to when I joined Amazon and asked about the Black Employee Network thing. And he gave me the gotta do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, ask for what you want, guys. Ask for what you want.
Okay, I am in real time shifting my mentality on that because I think in my experience, well, I've never actively gone and asked someone to be my mentor, like with those actual words. So it's very impressive to see like the power of literally just asking, hey, can you be my mentor? That's kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah. And with some, with it should be mutually benefit. There's always
it has to be mutually beneficial. Yes.
Yeah. You don't, and I would say for anybody getting a mentor, one of the absolute critical parts of that relationship for you as the mentee, deliver on what they asked you to do. They immediately lose trust and the relationship is diluted. If they tell you what to do, you meet with them the next month and you took no action, or if you guys meet, 3 months later, whatever is the, cadence of engagement, and you don't take action, then what's the point of the relationship if you're not actually executing on their advice? So definitely, have some integrity with the relationship and say and do what they ask you to do, so that they feel good that their investment in you is actually having some fruition.
That's an excellent point, and I had never necessarily tied it back to losing trust.
Sure.
I more so looked at it from, okay, I'm not wasting my time. Like the mentor would be like, I'm not wasting my time with you anymore, but I didn't necessarily think about it through the layer of trust. That's powerful. Wow. Cool. So Wealth-X, you now have a fantastic mentor who, is running this really interesting business, and you are, what was it like leaving a company that, like, you're leaving a mentor's company? Like, dude, I'm out. And I'm going to this thing. And I guess it probably helped that, okay, my wife is going over there, dude, like, it's all good. Yeah. And what was that conversation like? How do you quit your job? How do you quit a job? Yeah, let me ask that question.
Ooh, well, I just did, right? So I literally just did. And it was hard. Every time I've moved on, it was challenging because, I've knock on wood, but I've just had some great managers, great team environments and dynamics that, not everybody gets the experience, because some people have some really crappy managers and teams, but I've been lucky. So every time I left, there has been some, disappointment and leaving that. But I would say you definitely have to understand your why and lean into that to give you the momentum with that decision. I think for me, a lot of times is that I look at it like, hey, I have conquered X, Y, and Z. And yes, I could continue to do more, but I've already checked off those accomplishments. And I think it's really important for you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and grow as an individual. So having the framework of, hey, I'm going to grow more when I leave because I'm going to become uncomfortable in a new space and a new environment with, I don't have a lot of stakeholders that know my track record. I'm going to have to prove myself again. I'm going to have to learn X, Y, Z that I don't have competencies in quite yet. That to me is very exciting. And I keep that top of mind. Okay. And then I use that to fuel the conversation. Well, hey, it was such an amazing experience. I love that we worked on X, Y, and Z together, Mr. or Mrs. Manager. But this is going to be good for me. And here's why. And I would love your blessing. And I literally had that conversation with my director in my most recent role. So I led the seller success strategy for our small and diverse businesses for Amazon Business. And I had a lot of, I guess, success. I think the highlight of my career was just the last year, where I was one of the program managers that helped to launch Amazon's Black Business Accelerator, which is a $150 million investment to support Black-owned businesses selling on Amazon. I got to present to the CEO of Consumer, Dave Clark, and just help get his buy-in to launch, and post-launch work on the mechanisms needed to actually make it continue to be successful post-launch. And it was hard walking away from that because I have such a great branding. Everybody knows my good work. My old director is a mentor. He proactively asked to be a mentor for me.
Wow.
So I'm walking away from all of that richness in terms of political capital to the unknown with Amazon Music in this new role. But I know for myself, one, it's a good fit for me because of my previous work, my affinity for music, being part of the a streaming service and understanding that industry a little bit deeper is all exciting. And I think once you package it and tell a compelling story, here's my why, and here's the things that we've worked on together. And this may not be the end, but this is of the journey for us in the future. We may reconnect again, but for now, I want to continue to grow here.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm writing the script as we speak. Yeah, I think I struggle with this when I leave a job, because I really commit to a team. I really commit to the person I'm working for, and I don't look at a company as like my job. I look at a company as like, there's my company, right? You do whatever it takes to make the team succeed, and so I really appreciate you sharing that advice, because that's another thing they literally just you don't get taught anywhere, and unless you have really good mentors that can guide you through that process. Now everybody, it's out there, so come learn Anthony's script here, and I really appreciate you sharing that, by the way.
Sure, happy to.
So what's very exciting in my mind right now is, okay, you've had so much political career capital from those different things that you did.
Yeah.
That to some degree generated a certain amount of internal energy within yourself. You're expressing your skills at a higher and higher levels. And now you come into Amazon Music. So this is not necessarily only an expression of your professional skill. Not to say you're not a professional musician, but it is also, it seems, I think musicians operate internally. Like it's really a part of themselves. That's what I understand. Yeah. And now you're really expressing like true you in this role. So tell us about your excitement for this new journey.
Yeah, I feel like everybody, once they heard I made the switch, like if you go on my LinkedIn, you would see like so many comments from folks that kind of praising it. And a lot of folks felt like it was such a great organic fit for me, because doing my Black Employee Network work, it's very much a lot of employee engagement and a lot of the same framing, but specific to DEI. So I think what I'm most excited about is being able to scale that way of thinking and innovation and lean into the Amazon Music experience for employees. So that's really cool. So Amazon, used to have 14 leadership principles. They've launched 2 more. So we now have 16. And one of them is called the Earth's Best Employer. So my role is specifically charted around that leadership principle for Amazon Music employees. So I think I'm excited to, just bring that creative energy to the space of really looking at employee experience and how do we, continue to build trust for employees at the company, specific to Amazon Music. And then I think with the Great Resignation, there's something that I was watching one of my good friends who's also an Amazonian. And one of the things he did during the pandemic was, look, I can't connect with my friends, but I'm going to connect with them through impactful conversations, very much like the one we're having today. So he would go on LinkedIn and do these lives with people within his network. And one of the series, in that series, one individual, he used this phrase, what is going to be your post-corona pivot?
Ooh.
We all had this time to reset, really inspect what we would like to do with our lives, and what is important to us. And I think for me, I found that, hey, I've always done this music stuff, but I don't give it full-time attention. Let me bring it a little bit closer, because one of the opportunities I've had is I got the privilege to work with Casey Phillips, who is the CEO of Precision Productions. Anybody who knows Precision Productions is one of the Caribbean hit-making, businesses. And think of any of the biggest artists from the Caribbean, Casey and Precision has worked to either launch projects with or do some type of production on their songs. So, a lot of Marshall hits Casey has worked on. Wow. And I had the opportunity to work with him, and I'm working on an EP with him and stuff. So I said, if I am getting more closer to tapping into a more commercial engagement with my talent, then I should also align my corporate interest or work, especially at a company like Amazon that offers so much opportunity, with a streaming platform. So, Amazon Music had this role. It seemed like a perfect fit where organically I'm going to really learn about all the aspects of a streaming service, from the artist labels piece to the marketing piece, the branding piece. How do you develop an artist? And my intention is to, one, milk that opportunity on education for my edification as an artist, as a songwriter, and then to really lean into, okay, where do I truly want to be within the music space? Because, I'm doing the employee experience program management opportunity, which is great, but could I even get more closer? And my hope is that through this journey, I would identify those opportunities.
One of the things that's coming out in some of the things that you're sharing is this notion of mutually beneficial. And I think oftentimes when people maybe think of their career, and even as you're saying it real time, you're like, all right, I got to get this position. And this is like, all right, I got to get that. I'm going to probably get that pay. And you're saying some of those things in terms of, this is what I'm going to extract and learn, but you're also saying this is what I'm going to achieve for the company at the same time, right? So it's not necessarily this one-sided conversation. Oh, yeah, that's mine. That's my title. No, this is, I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this. There's going to be that mutual benefit for both of us. And then, but I'm going to go there. So along the way, I'm still providing value to the business, but also achieving your own internal, your own internal goals. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So in the last segment of the podcast, you've given a lot of advice so far, and lots of things that I'm thinking more deeply about. What two pieces of advice would you give to a high schooler, someone in college, and a professional? And I would also ask if you could, to some degree, contextualize it to maybe someone who does not necessarily have the access of the US-based system. And another thing I'm becoming hyper aware of is labor arbitrage. So I can hire really great data scientists in India, like amazing, at a quarter of the costs of, or much less to some degree, and sometimes, than the US. So how do folks at home who will now be on technically the receiving end of that labor arbitrage leverage that particular market to give them access to things globally?
Yeah, good question. Couple things that I would share for somebody that's really young. I would say, think big and believe in your dreams. I think, thinking small is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think you're limited to X, how can you get more than that? So set your bar really high for what you want to do with your life, and have a blind obsession with that. If it's truly something you're passionate about and you believe that would bring you joy, would make you fulfilled, and that could scale across from a young person to a college person and a professional. So believe in your dreams is essentially what I'm saying. Don't think small. Persevere. I would say persevere to a young person. Persevere meaning even if you fall down, pick up yourself and try again. I think my transition from private banking into that firm Wealthx took many interviews before I did it, but along the way, I learned what to do to actually become a really strong interviewer. So I kept trying, and I want to share this. I'm going off a little tangent, but because I learned how to interview well, I'm able to manifest a lot more opportunities, and that was along the process of failure with the interviews that I didn't do so well. But again, networking. So the same gentleman that was saying, "Hey, you need to join LinkedIn." Before he joined LinkedIn, he was somebody that I reached out to on LinkedIn at another firm when I was a finalist for another company. Wow. And I said to him, "Bro, I've been a finalist for these roles and I'm not getting the offer. I don't know what I'm doing wrong." And then he said, "You are transitioning from one industry to the next. You need to be able to articulate how you're going to add value to that new role and how your skills are transferable." And a light bulb went off, and I went home and really looked at how I was answering certain questions. And I invested in a resource called biginterview.com. That really helped me to hone in on interviewing well. So quick example. When somebody says, "Tell me about yourself," a lot of times people may want to go in a chronological order about their career. Nope, that's not how you answer that question. It's something simple. It's a very succinct, crisp answer around, "Hey, I've most recently been working on XYZ at this firm. This is my success that I've had. And I see myself being able to add value to you and the team by doing XYZ. That's how you answer, "Tell me about yourself." That's really simple, but you won't know that until you invest in learning. The quantification of your skill set and success are all things that I learned in that process. But again, networking. I met that young man back then. I became a great friend through networking. So yeah, back to the advice: persevere. Don't believe in yourself, and don't let naysayers, say differently. I will share some lyrics from a song that I wrote around perseverance. "Persevere and work even harder. Courage and bravery like a soldier. Emancipate your mind and think bigger. Meditate, concentrate, become greater. Never give up, conquer all failure. Ignore, reject, trample them haters. Knowledge and wisdom will build up character. In your present, prepare for your future." All right. So that's two pieces of advice. Now, in terms of the challenge of having access, I think you were asking, right? I think there's, I don't want to underscore the difficulty of the friction that for folks that may not have access to, like you and I being in the US. But there are still going to be opportunities for firms that, especially in the tech space, I want to kind of anchor it around that. There's a plethora of opportunities within the tech space, and you don't necessarily need to target just US companies. There's international firms that are still looking for bright young minds that could actually move the needle for their company. And I'm teaching. I have a 8-year-old baby sister. Yes, I do. And I'm really gung-ho on having my mom, have her learn coding from now and really prep her, because that's the future. The technology space is the future, and for our Caribbean region to actually continue to be competitive and stay ahead of the curve, we're going to have our young people in this sector. So I definitely look for the areas within technology that you probably are most interested or aligned in, and become the best that you can in terms of being a subject matter expert on that space. And over time, as you continue to pursue that, opportunities will manifest. Don't let the fact that you're back home be a restriction to you seeing the future you want to see, when there's so much opportunity that's going to continue to evolve as the world goes forward with a very technologically minded way of doing business.
Oh, I lots of things I took away from there. I love the fact that you said opportunities will manifest. That's a good. Yeah. I'm sure you probably had that in a song somewhere. And the other one that stuck out to me was Blind Obsession. I really love that. That was very crisp and very, very clear as to the attitude that you need to have in order to overcome, the perceived limitations. And I think COVID was quite a terrible thing in the world, but I think it was also one of the greatest blessings in terms of people discovering there is a different way to life.
Yeah.
And now companies are looking for people globally. So if you are home or in a small region anywhere in the world, like there's startups in every country that you could try to apply to and gain a global network. So I appreciate you calling that out. I don't think I was probably as successful as you on the interview front. I probably should have gone to biginterview.com. I was looking back. I think I failed like 23 interviews. I was just, each one I did get more motivation though. I will definitely attest to that. And some of them came from like Microsoft and et cetera, et cetera. One I wanted to ask you was, you seem to be a big person on mindset, and I know you work out, et cetera, et cetera. However, I think one thing that has helped me a lot is I listen to a lot of motivational talks. And for a long time, I'd actually stopped listening to music because while beats were catchy, the corresponding lyrics didn't necessarily push me into the best mental space for me to believe that the future was possible. So I ended up swapping to, all right, I'll just listen to Les Brown, Tony Robbins. This is what I listen to put me in a headspace of, I can achieve. These things are possible, even though what was in front of me was, nowhere near where I wanted to be. And I've always felt that there's a space for that type of narrative that the motivational personal development people push out, but through the delivery of music to really penetrate your soul. And there's an artist called Akira the Don. And I don't know if you've ever heard of him. So he takes a lot of speeches and he remixes them. And it's the most addictive thing I think I've listened to in a long time. And I wanted to gauge, why is that? Like, what's your thoughts on that particular genre of music? Because even in that short expose that you just did, you were sending a powerful message, right? And not necessarily trying to get a claim. You're literally teaching me, but in the form of song.
Sure. Oh, man. So one of the things that for me personally, when I decided if I'm going to do music, I said it's going to be truly representative of me. And I know a lot of times as an artist, you would use like a nickname, like one of the nicknames that was given to me when I moved to the US was OG Trini. Another one that I actually have as a handle on IG is Trinidad868. So, I was like, oh, should I come up with a name? Maybe AC, Anthony Cole. But I decided to use my own name, and the music that I'm going to do is going to be representative of me. And a big part of me is being somebody that motivates and creates positive energy and has positive messages. And I think a lot of my music will have elements of that. And I think, I just think it's so much noise in this world that folks that invest in the creative space should have a big piece of their anchor should be positive messaging and just good vibe that helps to motivate people. Because like you mentioned with that artist channeling great speeches into song, is a way in which music just resonates even better than just reading that on paper. You know, like for me, one of my songs is called Rise Up, that I would listen to over and over again for my own motivation. Other, I think Bungie has a song out right now, Bungie Garland. As long as I have Jehovah Jireh, I'm not, like I said, my tagline, healthy mind, body, spirit. I also try to keep myself connected, grounded spiritually. So, and music helps us center that focus a lot of times. So I think it's important for creatives to, yes, you could have the fun, and you could, our carnival culture could be, very fun. And that in and of itself is uplifting, right? Because we go through such challenging time in our work and our lives and the different aspects of just living, that having that time to be free and enjoy and appreciate living through music is great, but also having very distinct positive messages that could actually help people, evolve and actually navigate different challenging things. I think it's important to deliver with music as well.
Beautiful message, man. You said something there that I've done, and I'm curious. So you're a musician, which means you're intimately familiar with the power of words. The words that you generate come from deep within inside of you, and it's really, to some degree, a true expression of yourself. So in my early 20s, when you get a hard breakup there, you thought things was gonna go good, and you get mashed up. And there was a book called The Traveler's Gift, and I don't know what led me to do it. I recorded myself reading this book, and I listened to that thing for the next decade every day. And it had such a profound impact on my base foundation of thinking that, when you just said, like, you record a song and you listen to it to motivate yourself. Yes. And I've been like secretly hunting, like, hey, hook me up with a producer so I could like get my own knowledge into my brain to, it's like this interesting feedback mechanism to build yourself and to fortify your base thinking. Tell us, why did you do that? Did you do that intentionally, sorry? Or did that organically just come out and like you're just motivated by listening to your own words?
Yeah, so it's funny. I'll be vulnerable and say the Rise Up song was because of a breakup. I was so hurt by it.
Real good things just come from breakups,
You understand? So I wrote that song to, help myself know that it will be okay. And the lyrics of the chorus is, rise up again. Never let them get you down. Never let them rise up again. Believe in your dreams. Rise up again. Understand? So it was so profound to me. Those simple lyrics helped me to realize it's okay. I will rise again. I will evolve from this pain and hurt. But it was universal, because it's not just for that breakup. It's for any challenging aspect that I would, or roadblock or friction that I would experience in my life. I would be able to apply that mental model of it's going to be okay. I can rise up again. And these are the things I need to do.
That's real vibes. I wish I could have sing like you, because my voice was sung and all kind of croaky and thing, and I recorded it on a little iPod. And so every time I listen to it, I'm like, shit, boy, your voice horrible. So I added to the remix, and I might get to sing it for me. So it'll deliver deeper inside. But I appreciate you sort of sharing that.
Sure.
Great things with breakups. I think I was the fittest in my life, like after a breakup, just completely shredded.
Of course, always.
Good times. So my last question, to respect your time, is what 3 books do you recommend people to read?
First one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So again, being able to just make connections that are so important in networking, that is so important to folks being able to help you help yourself. So I would say that. What else I would recommend?
Have you read Networking with the Affluent?
No, I have not actually.
Bad. I almost sad I released that secret there. That book just wicked. And
okay.
In your whole conversations about WealthX, I'm like, shit, I wonder if this man read this book, boy. I don't see if it really work,
Okay.
But yeah, sorry for interrupting you.
No stress at all. Yeah. So How to Win Friends and Influence, Think and Grow Rich, I think is another very powerful book as well. And what would be another one, man? Well, I'll give a shout out to anybody who wants to lean into the sales aspect of this conversation, a book called The Challenger, which has a very detailed approach to becoming a successful salesperson, which could, of course, apply to any other profession where you have to win friends within that board meeting, within that for that proposal, etc.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna buy that book like immediately. So, Anthony, man, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I have lots of lessons that I'm going to actually re-listen to this interview and make sure they penetrate. And I appreciate your time.
Hey, this was excellent. Really appreciated the opportunity as well. So again, big up to you and the team putting this together. I think it's a great work that you're doing to spread awareness of tech careers, and happy to be a supporter of it now.
Fantastic, man. We go link.
Yes.
Later.
Take care.